Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors for the apostles and the elders, a great millstone and roll well. Peace and blessing salutations to the hopeful elect of Israel. Okay, I'm going to be reading 1 Maccabees chapter 1. I'm going to read the whole chapter, really because it definitely shows that our people became heathens. They joined themselves to the heathen, and they did heathen customs. All right, they forsook their holy customs. All right, being an Israelite, specifically being a Jew, because it was a southern kingdom, and they joined themselves to the heathen, which is why the New Testament, they're also Gentiles. They became Gentiles, and that's the Gentiles that are being brought back to the fold. Okay. This is 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 1. And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. Okay, and that's really when the Edomites started coming into power, and then for a little while after Rome fell and all that, they were out of power again, and then they came back in at the time of the Renaissance. All right. The first over Greece, and made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host, and ruled over countries and nations and kings, who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick, and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and he had brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years, and then died. And his servants bare rule every one in his place, and after his death they all put crowns upon themselves, so did their sons after them many years. And evils were multiplied in the earth, right? Because that's the wicked. Edomites are the wicked, okay? How do we know that? Well, Malachi chapter 1 tells us that, verse 4. I'm going to get right to the point. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom Yahweh hath indignation forever. And that was actually one of the blessings given to Esau, was the sword, all right? Hold on. This is Genesis chapter 27, verse 38. And Esau said unto his father, which is Isaac, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. And by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother, and shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. All right? Which is, to this day, the Edomites are known for using their sword in battle, and their battle power, which the modern day sword is a gun. Okay? So now where are we? Verse 10. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, which is also, a wicked root because he's Edomite as well, which the Romans also were. And he reigned in the 137th year. Son of Antiochus, the king who had been in hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built the place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief, which was the Greeks. Okay, but really, all nations they've joined themselves onto, even now in America, all right, and wherever Jake is living, whether it be in France or Italy or wherever, Spain, they do their customs. It's no different, all right. Now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion of 2 realms. Wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, and with chariots and elephants and horsemen, and a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy king of Egypt. But Ptolemy was afraid of him, and fled, and many were wounded to death. And they got the strong cities and the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils thereof. And after that Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude, and entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar, and the candlestick of light, and all the vessels thereof, and the table of the shewbread, and the pouring vessels, and the vials, and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crown, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver and the gold and the precious vessels. Also he took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoken very proudly. Therefore there was a great mourning in Israel in every place where they were, so that the princes and elders mourned, the virgins and young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women was changed. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness. The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion. And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute unto the cities of Judah, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spake peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Israel. And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and children took they captive, and possessed the cattle. Then builded they the city of David with a great and strong wall, and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. They stored it also with armor and victuals. And when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there, and so they became a sore snare. For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary to Israel. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary, and defiled it, insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them. Whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers, and became strange to those that were born in her. And her own children left her. Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbath into reproach, her honor into contempt. As had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom, that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath. So they forsook the holy covenant, just as before. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end they might forget the law and change all their ordinances, to the end they might forget the law. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said should die. Or he said he should die. So whoever doesn't, conform to what they're doing, they should be put to death. So if they would keep the law, which it'll go on. So I'll just keep reading. In the selfsame manner wrote he to his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Judah to sacrifice, city by city. Then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, every one that forsook the law, and so they committed evils in the land, and drove the Israelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for succor. Now the 15th day of the month of Casliu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side, and burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law which they found, they burnt them with fire. And whosoever was found with any the book of the testament, or if any committed to the law, the king's commandment was that they should be put to death. Thus did they by their authority unto the Israelites every month, to as many as were found in the cities. Now the 25th, which is 25th, day of the month, they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of Yahweh. At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised, and they hanged the infants about their necks, and rifled their houses, and slew them that had circumcised them. Howbeit, many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing, wherefore the rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the holy covenant. So then they died, and there was very great wrath upon Israel. Okay, so they were forcing. There was heathens, there was Israelites. Well, that's what they became. They became heathens. All right, they became vile and wicked. All right, there are many of them that kind of like now, like the chip. Many of them, because with this mark of the beast, they'll deceive people into taking it and this and that. But there will be people, Israelites, that'll just want to take it right away. Okay, and then there will be people that they'll have to force. All right, but back then there was people that wanted to join onto the heathen, and there was, then it was talking about how people that wouldn't join onto them would be killed. So that put fear in other people, and other people were forced to do it. All right, or they felt like they were forced to do it, so to speak. All right, because they didn't want to die, or they didn't want to get tortured or whatever. All right, so that's where you get Jew nor Greek. Okay, and that's where Gentiles come, because some of the Israelites knew that they were Israelites in the New Testament, but were doing heathen customs, or lived in a heathen land. Some of them didn't know they were Israelites. All right, but a lot of them were the sons and daughters of people like this that went and joined themselves to the heathen. All right, and it's said that if you circumcise your child, that you'd be put to death, and the child would be put to death. All right, and the woman would be put to death for wanting that, and the person that did it would be put to death. All right, so they were forcing you. All right, so that's where you get that, man. Okay, Yahweh Shema Shai is only dealing with the nation of Israel, specifically the elect right now. All right, not anybody and everybody. Okay, we made ourselves like heathen. All right, a lot of our people now act like heathen, which is why 2/3 have to die the death of heathens. Okay, it's straightforward. That's a big reason why they took this out, because it clearly showed them that. All right, plantation Christianity is not according to the Bible. Okay, and just like this, how they had to beat people into submission, they did that with Christianity as well. All right, all that iconoclasm that they did, and then they put up their own images and they beat that into people, whether it was the conquistadors for the northern kingdom, or whether it was just slave masters in general beating the southern kingdom. They would beat Christianity in them, or Catholicism, which is still Christianity. Okay, so you need to repent and come back to Yahweh Shema Shai, because All hell's about to break loose, man. Major things are happening, and a lot of people are distracted and unknowingly, just doing wickedness, okay? And well, not really unknowingly now, because the truth has been all out, all right? They should know by now that they shouldn't be doing that, but they chose to do it anyways, okay? The truth has basically been preached all over, all right? But only so many people are going to get it. And that's something we need to understand as well, that we shouldn't break a sweat over people not understanding. It just means they're not supposed to, okay? Or at least not yet. Because some people will probably wake up. Some people will wake up when, some miracles and stuff start happening, okay? So that was First Maccabees chapter 1, and that alone had history in it, and it shows you that our people became Gentiles and heathens, basically, man. They became heathens. Not literally, not like they're all of a sudden literally from the loins of heathen, but they became heathens, and that's how they acted, and that's what they did, okay? And a lot of them that didn't do that, they were forced to. All right, so, Lord willing, this was edifying, and it helps you understand what's going on in the New Testament, because this is literally like, I think this is probably the second to last book of the Old Testament, or something like that, because there's a second Maccabees. The point is, it's right at the end. All right, this was less than 200 years before the Messiah came. All right. So it definitely is relative to the New Testament, and the people, like the apostles, they knew, like Apostle Paul, he was sent to the Gentiles, but he knew this information already. He knew that stuff. He knew about our people joining to the heathens, and he knew about our people being forced to do that stuff, okay? Which, I say forced in a different way, because they weren't forced to do anything. They didn't have to do that. They could have took death, but they chose to break, so to speak, okay? They folded, right? And Apostle Paul knew that, and he also understood that Israelites, especially, because people talk about the New Testament, and they never mention the Northern Kingdom, Well, you're always like, well, it's the Jews and the Gentiles. Well, where's the other tribes? There's a lot more tribes from the Northern Kingdom. You think some of those tribes, some of those people, because they were mainly in the Americas. They came over to the Americas, after the Assyrian captivity, but there's still some of them there. So you don't think that Apostle Paul went to them as well? Not just the Southern Kingdom, but it seemed like the Southern Kingdom was really split. The Southern and the Northern Kingdom, like they didn't even look at each other as the same people anymore, it seemed like. All right? So you have to understand these things to understand the New Testament, man. The New Testament has nothing to do with heathen nations. All right? The promises and the covenants and all that were given to the Israelites. That is made extremely clear in Romans the 9th chapter. Okay? And you can't get around that. What about the south? There's only 12 gates for the 12 tribes. The elect is only what was it? It said 12,000 from each of the tribes. It doesn't say every nation. And look out in the New Testament, it just says somebody from this land or that land. Okay, it doesn't say that they're from this nation, like a heathen nation, whatever their name would be, and then from this nation. They're all Israelites, man. They just live in different lands. Okay? And I mean, it shouldn't really surprise you, knowing all the captivities that Israel's gone through, that they'd still be doing those same traditions and that they forsake their own. Okay? That's nothing new, man. And in many captivities our people have done that. They've conformed to the religion and the traditions of their slave masters. That's even happening now. It really is, man. Look at the Northern Kingdom. They do a lot of things that the Edomites from Spain do. All right? America doesn't necessarily have a specific culture at all, but you get the point. Okay? Our people even now are acting like Greeks. All right? And they go to college and act like Greeks, go to frat houses and sororities, stuff like that. So it's not any different, man. All right, the apostles even say, the apostles being the apostle elders at Great Millstone, they say that we're living through Acts right now again, all over again. And that is completely true. If you read the book of Acts, it's really not much different. All right, there's people, a lot of people won't listen to us. Our people are scattered all over. Our people are acting like all sorts of different people. Okay, our people want to be other people. You know, our women trying to look, you know, they're straightening their hair, dyeing their hair, blonde. You know, our men are castrated spiritually, becoming effeminate and emasculated. Okay, we're, you know, and some of us will have to die for the truth. Right, so it is the book of Acts all over again. So Lord willing, this is edifying the elect. I want to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders, a great millstone, or well. Peace and blessing salutations to the hopeful elect of Israel. All right, keep pushing, endure. Shalom.